So, what do you think is the biggest moat Tesla has? Well, if you remember what Elon Musk has said in the past, one of his favorite phrases is, "It's all about the machine that builds the machines. That's what matters." And when I spoke with Lars Morvey, Tesla's vice president of engineering last week, he mentioned that the automation equipment for the production lines for Optimus, they're being built in Germany right now. He then said, almost in passing, roughly 40 separate sublines are being built and tested overseas before they ever touch Fremont. So if you own Tesla stock, I think that one sentence points at the deepest moat this company has, and it never makes the headlines. Everyone's watching the robot. Today, I want to show you the machines that built the robot. Quick backstory in this one. So, a viewer named Toby emailed me after the Lars interview, and he said, "You should do a whole episode on Tesla's automation teams, the ones in Minnesota and Germany." And he's right. Because once you line up who these teams are and what they're shipping right now, the Optimus story and the Cybercab story start looking sturdier, more real, less like a demo reel, and more like a supply chain. So, the plan for today: first, we're going to talk about what Lars actually said. Then, the two companies Tesla quietly bought almost 10 years ago, one in Germany and one in Minnesota, and what they've grown into. Then, the live proof it's working, which is Giga Berlin's ramp this year. And at the end, the honest bear case, because this exact strategy already burned Tesla once. Let's start with the interview. Lars Morvey runs vehicle engineering at Tesla, so over 1,000 engineers are underneath him. They cover the cars, the launches, and a lot of the machinery that builds them. So when he talks about factories, that's his desk. When we got to Optimus, he laid out how the production system comes together. The first real Optimus line is standing up at Fremont on the floor where Model S and X used to be built. The design is modular, he said. Sub-assembly lines that can be added, moved, and rearranged as the robot itself keeps changing. He said they can stand these up far faster than a traditional fixed line. And equipment for those lines? That's the part being built and validated in Germany right now. Around 40 distinct sublines worth of it. Elon was at Fremont this week, walking the floor, and the first footage of the line is already out. So the old Model S and X space is turning into a robot factory in real time. The word validated is the tell. Tesla builds a machine in Germany, runs it, proves it hits rate and quality, and then ships it to California. So by the time a line lands in Fremont, it's already been debugged an ocean away. That's how you compress a ramp. He said something similar about Cybercab. That line is designed for about 90% full automation, and his words on volume were that it'll scale far beyond what current market estimates say. For scale, Model Y has been a 4 million unit product, and the coverage of our conversation read his comments as Cybercab potentially clearing that. That's a target from an executive, so hold it loosely. But the design intent is clear. They're building a car more like a phone gets built than like a car gets built. And two smaller details from that conversation stuck with me. He said finished vehicles at the factory now drive themselves through the final quality check. FSC takes each car over the bumps and rattles track, while microphones inside the cabin listens for defects. And Tesla's training a system to flag the flaws automatically. They're calling it full self-hearing, which tells you exactly how they think. Same playbook as FSD applied to the factory's ears. The plant is inspecting its own output with the product's own brain. He also mentioned AI agents running inside engineering, supply chain, service, and quality. So the automation push covers the office floor too, and the pattern is the same everywhere. Take that repetitive work, hand it to the machine, keep iterating. So, who builds all this equipment? That question is basically the rest of this show. To answer it, you go back to 2016 and 2017, when Tesla made two acquisitions that got about a day of headlines each and then dropped out of conversation completely. So the first was Grohmann Engineering in a small German town called Prüm, out near the Belgian border. Prüm has about 5,000 people. You drive through it without slowing down. And Klaus Grohmann founded his firm there in 1983, then spent 3 decades turning it into one of the best automation houses in the world. These were the people other manufacturers hired when the production problem was too hard. Semiconductor equipment, airbag sensors, battery lines. The client list reportedly ran from Daimler and BMW to chip makers. And Tesla was already a customer. In November 2016, Tesla announced it was buying the whole firm, about 700 people at the time. The deal closed in January 2017 for roughly $135 million all in. $135 million. Tesla's market cap moves more than that while you're watching this video. Depending on the day, sometimes a lot more. For that price, Tesla got a world-class machine design organization it now has owned for a decade. Elon's reasoning at the time became the famous line. He kept saying the factory is the product. Grohmann was him buying that team that could engineer that product. And he was serious enough about it that reports from 2017 says Tesla wound down Grohmann's contracts with other automakers, the Daimlers and BMWs of the world, to point the entire company at Tesla's own lines. Klaus Grohmann himself left in the shuffle, reportedly over exactly that. It was messy. It was also completely consistent with the strategy. Every hour of that team now compounds inside Tesla. Then, later in 2017, Tesla did it again, quieter in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. So, a company called Perbix, founded in 1976, about 150 people, decades of experience building custom factory machinery, and also already a Tesla supplier. Tesla bought them and said flat out it would grow the team in the Twin Cities as it kept building the machine that builds the machine. So by the end of 2017, Tesla owned two machine building companies on two continents: German precision on one side, American industrial pragmatism on the other. And then for years, basically silence. They just went to work, which honestly is my favorite kind of Tesla story. The loud stuff gets priced in within a week. The quiet stuff compounds for a decade before anyone builds a model around it. Let's start with the German side, because that's where the Optimus equipment is coming from. Grohmann is now called Tesla Automation GmbH, and it's grown from 700 people to more than 1,650 across 4 German locations. Brum is the anchor, plus Neutrobling, Neuwied, and Rutlinger. I don't know how to say these names. Their own website describes the work plainly: highly automated production lines and special purpose machines for the Tesla Group, battery cell and module lines, powertrain components, electronics assembly. The operating model is the interesting part. Tesla Automation builds a production line in Germany, commissions it, proves it out, and then that line gets installed in a gigafactory somewhere in the world. And because the product engineers and the line engineers work for the same company at the same time, the product gets designed for the machine, while the machine gets designed for the product. Tesla calls it simultaneous engineering. One loop instead of a handoff. You could see the fingerprints early. Reports from the Model 3 era had Grohmann teams rebuilding the battery module lines at the Nevada Gigafactory when those became the bottleneck. That was a new tool set getting pointed at the company's hardest problem within a year of the deal. Compare that to how the rest of the industry works. A legacy automaker designs a car, then goes to outside equipment suppliers, the Kukas and Dürrs and Kamas, and orders production machinery. Those suppliers sell to every automaker. So whatever line you can buy, your competitor can buy too. Everyone's shopping the same catalog. Tesla's lines come from inside the house. If Tesla Automation figures out a better way to assemble a structural battery pack or an Optimus hand, that knowledge stays home, shows up again in the next generation of machines. It compounds. Compounds every product cycle. Play that forward with a robot. If the best gripper assembly process in the world gets worked out in Prüm this year, no competitor can order it next year or the year after. It never leaves the building. Here's a detail that tells you how good this team actually is. So during COVID, the biotech company CureVac brought in Tesla Grohmann to help develop an RNA printer, basically a portable microfactory for vaccine material. Elon talked about it publicly at the time. A car company's automation division hired to automate molecular biology. That's the caliber of what we're talking about here. And then there's a second German layer on top. Giga Berlin has its own embedded automation teams, engineers whose whole job is commissioning, troubleshooting, and speeding up equipment on a live factory floor. The Berlin job postings, they look for control engineers for the cell factory, manufacturing engineers to ramp equipment, automation software developers. It's basically a second automation company living inside the factory. The machine builders in Prüm and the machine runners in Grenade feed each other constantly. Hold that thought, because what that loop produced this year is the proof section of the show. Okay, let's talk about the Minnesota side now, because Toby asked about this one specifically, and it gets even less attention than Germany. So the old Perbix operation is now Tesla Midwest Automation in Brooklyn Park, a suburb of Minneapolis. Around 200 people now, well around 200 employees in Minnesota total, but most of them sit in that operation. The best window into what they do is Tesla's own job postings, which describe a fast-paced engineering group automating production of Tesla's newest products. The postings sketch the shape of the work: mechanical engineers designing custom automation machines and tooling, control engineers doing PLCs and robotics and integration, software engineers building fleet management for autonomous factory robots, and my favorite one, simulation engineers doing virtual commissioning. They build the production line in software first, run it, find the jams and collisions and timing problems, and fix them before anyone cuts metal. That's the same philosophy as the German validation step expressed in code. Debug the factory before the factory exists. There's also material flow work, designing how parts physically move through a building, which sounds boring until a line starves for parts and the whole plant stops. And the fleet software piece deserves a second look. Tesla runs autonomous robots inside its factories moving material around, and somebody has to write the traffic control for all of them. That's Brooklyn Park 2. The Minnesota location makes more sense than it might look. The Twin Cities have a deep bench of automation and precision machinery talent. built up over decades of medical, device, and industrial equipment work. It's a stable, lower cost base, a long way from the California and Texas talent wars. Tesla basically picked up a workshop in the middle of America's machine building belt and kept feeding it. They've even outgrown the original Perbix building and taken on bigger space in the same town. One more Minnesota note. The postings describe this group, Automation Development, as automating the production of Tesla's latest and most advanced products. Latest and most advanced, 2026. That means the robot. The hiring is the signal I track here. Every open controls or simulation role in Brooklyn Park is Tesla putting money into machines for products that haven't shipped yet. It's about as close to a leading indicator as this company gives you, and is sitting in public on their careers page. Okay, so all of that sounds nice as a story. The proof it works is sitting in Brandenburg right now, and it's been one of the quietest good news streaks in the whole Tesla picture this entire year. Giga Berlin opened in March 2022. It took about 2.5 years to build its first 500,000 drive units. The next 500,000 took about 1 year. In April, the factory crossed 1 million drive units total, and Elon congratulated the team on it. So drive units are the stat I keep coming back to because that's the machine-heavy part of the car. Motors, power electronics, gearboxes. Doubling your cumulative output in a year on the most automated part of the product, that's the automation org showing its work. Same story in vehicles. Q1 this year was a record quarter, around 61,000 Model Ys out the door. Then in April, Tesla announced a 20% production increase backed by about 1,000 new hires. And before that, first increase even finished ramping, they announced a second one, another 20%, another 1,000 hires, targeting about 7,500 vehicles a week starting this October. Here's why that matters for this show. Those increases come out of the same building with the same footprint. The gains come from the automation team squeezing more rate out of existing lines, rebalancing, reprogramming, upgrading equipment that Tesla Automation built in the first place. When you own the machine design, a capacity increase is an engineering project. When you rent it from a supplier, it's a purchase order and a queue. Walk the factory and you see what that org built. Hundreds of robots in the body shop, giant robots in the paint shop that the team nicknamed Godzilla, more than 20 automated stations in general assembly, with people doing the final touch work automation still can't. The machine that builds the machine, running at scale in public. There is a battery layer to this too. Tesla put another $250 million into the Berlin cell factory this spring to more than double planned 4680 output. More lines, more equipment, more of it, Tesla's own. Stack the two expansion waves and the battery investment together, and you're looking at something like 3,500 new jobs across the site. That's a factory leaning all the way in a European market people spent 2 years calling soft. And Berlin matters for Optimus directly. The robot equipment being validated in Germany is being validated by the same organization. With everything it learned ramping a car factory towards 7,500 a week, Optimus inherits all of that scar tissue on day one. So put all the threads together. You got a 1,650 person machine design house in Germany. You got a shop in Minnesota simulating factories before they exist, embedded teams ramping Berlin in real time, and all of it pointed right now at two products. Cybercab, with a line designed for roughly 90% automation, and Optimus, which is the harder problem and the bigger prize. Lars says the robot's bill of materials comes in under a car, but it's around 10,000 unique parts, precision actuators, hands with more engineering in them than some vehicles. There's no supplier on earth you can call and order a humanoid robot production line from. If you want one, you build it yourself, which means a company that spent a decade building its own production equipment starts that race years ahead. And geography tells you to plan. Equipment born in Prüm, simulated in Brooklyn Park, proven in Berlin, shipped to Fremont and Austin. A global machine building pipeline, owned end to end, that took a decade to assemble. That's the moat Toby was pointing at. And my read is it's underpriced for a simple reason. It's invisible in the numbers investors actually look at. There's no line item called automation advantage. It shows up later, indirectly, as gross margin, as ramp speed, as a robot that costs $20-something thousand to build while a competitor's cost six figures. By the time it's obvious in the financials, the advantage is 10 years old. We've watched this movie with batteries already. Tesla held a pack cost lead over the industry for years, and manufacturing depth was a huge part of the reason. The robot version of that story is being set up right now in Prüm and Brooklyn Park. The demand side of Optimus gets modeled to death. Every analyst has a robot TAM slide. The production side is the part Tesla spent a decade quietly locking up, and it's the part that decides who actually makes money. Now the bear case, and it's a real one, because this exact strategy already blew up in Tesla's face once. 2018, the Model 3 ramp. Tesla tried to hyper automate that line, including final assembly and even the conveyance moving parts around, and it failed hard enough that Elon said it publicly. They ripped robots out and put people back in. Model 3 got built in a tent for a while. So when Tesla says 90% automation for Cybercab, the fair question is, what's different this time? A few things, honestly. In 2018, they were automating a car that had been designed like a normal car. Cybercab and Optimus are being designed from scratch around the machines that build them, which was the missing half last time. And the team doing it now has 8 more years of scar tissue, including 2 full Gigafactory ramps. The second risk is capex and utilization. Custom machines cost real money up front. They only pay off running near full tilt. Berlin's expansion has been calibrated to European demand, and if demand softens, some of that spend sits idle. That's a genuine cyclical risk, and I'm not going to wave it away. Third is talent. Automation engineers are some of the most fought over people in the labor market right now, and every robotic startup on the planet would love to poach from Prum or Brooklyn Park. Europe also brings its own frictions: energy costs, union dynamics at Grunheide, permitting that moves slower than Texas, all real, all ongoing. And fourth, competitors invest here too. BYD is vertically integrated in its own way, and the German automakers have been doing smart factory work for years. Even the humanoid startups are talking up their own in-house manufacturing lines now because they can see the same bottleneck coming. Tesla's lead looks real to me, but it's a lead in a race that's still running, and leads have to be extended. So where I land, the 2018 story is actually why I take the 2026 story seriously. This team already paid the tuition on automation and kept building anyway. Timelines will slip. They always do, but the direction hasn't changed in a decade. So what do you do with this as an investor? Mostly, it changes how you read the next 18 months of Optimus and Cybercab news. When a demo drops, the question that matters is the production question. Sublines shipping from Germany, rate at Fremont, whether the announcement Lars teased for July 7th, a Giga production scaling announcement, includes Optimus capacity. It also changes how you size up the competition. When another company shows off a human or robot prototype, the prototype was never the hard part. Ask who's building the production lines, at what rate, at what cost. Most of those answers route back to outside suppliers or hand assembly, and that gap is the actual investment story. And it should adjust your patience. Moats like this pay out slowly, then all at once. If your thesis needs Optimus revenue next quarter, this show doesn't help you. If your horizon is 5 to 10 years, the machine building layer is a big part of why the compounding case holds together. Rough framework for the 2 paths. If Optimus stays a demo through 2027, this automation story stays a cost line and the market shrugs. But if the sublines keep landing and the real production rate shows up, the margin math starts moving, and manufacturing depth becomes the reason Tesla wins the robot race instead of just entering it. I lean toward the second path, but you don't have to take my word for it. The things to watch are next. So a few concrete things to watch. Watch your job board seriously. Brooklyn Park and Prum postings are a free leading indicator. A wave of new controls and simulation roles means new lines are coming for something. And listen for the phrase subline in future Tesla communications. Modular sublines are how Optimus scales, so the count matters more than demos. One more, keep an eye on the Q3 and Q4 numbers for Berlin specifically. The 7,500 target shows up there first, in the boring quarterly table, months before anyone makes a video about it. None of that homework costs anything but attention, and it puts you ahead of people reading headlines. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. Tesla spent about $135 million a decade ago on a German engineering firm, added a machine shop in Minnesota, and let them work in the dark for 10 years. Today, that organization is building the production system for what might be the biggest product in the company's history. The robot gets the headlines. The machines that build the robot are the moat. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, found it valuable. And thanks to Toby for that suggestion. This one was a great dig. If you got something out of it, please subscribe. That really helps the channel. See you in the next one.